Hello students, this is Neeta Piju again. Welcome to another class of business studies. In our previous class, we studied about the concept of planning. We started with the 4th chapter, and we also studied the importance or benefits of planning. Now we are going to study about the features or characteristics of planning. So the features and characteristics of planning are as follows. The first one, planning focuses on achieving objectives. Planning is a primary function of management. Planning is pervasive. Planning is continuous. Planning is futuristic. Planning involves decision making, and planning is a mental exercise. So these are the 7 characteristics or features of planning. We shall study this in detail one by one. The first one, planning focuses on achieving objectives. So planning is a purposeful activity. Planning has no meaning if it does not contribute in achieving the organizational goals. So goals or objectives are set in the planning process itself with the future course of action. Thus, planning always aims at achieving the objectives. So in this feature, a very important characteristic of planning is it always aims at achieving the objectives, that is predetermined goals or objectives which an organization has set. Accordingly, they frame plans and policies. They think about the courses of actions, select the best course of action, and ensures that the objective or the goal is achieved. So planning always aims at the end point. Planning always focuses on the predetermined or set objectives of the organization. So that is why planning is very much required. One of the very important feature of planning, it is always aiming at achieving the predetermined objectives or target or goal, because setting of objective itself is the first process in planning. This we'll study in detail later, that is planning process. See, setting of objectives comes first. So this objective or aim should be achieved, and that is one of the feature of planning. The next one is planning is a primary function of management. So planning provides the basis or foundation for the other functions of management. Therefore, planning is the primary function of management, and the other functions are performed according to the plans set. So when you are talking about primary function, means planning always comes first. In any managerial activity, planning is the first step. Planning is the first function of the management, and that is why it is called as a primary function. It serves or it provides the foundation or basis for management and for functioning, for performing all the other functions as well. So all the other functions are following planning function. So this is what is happening in an organization. So that is why it is called as a primary function. Primary function means the first function, the initial function, the first step or activity taken by the management, and all the other functions will be performed after planning process. According to the plans framed, the other functions are performed. So of course every function has its own importance, but planning stands first, and all the other functions are of course interrelated, but planning is the first step according to which the other functions of management are performed. So that is why it is called as a primary function of management. The next feature is planning is pervasive. Of course, pervasive means it's spread all over, it exists everywhere. So therefore planning is required at every level of management and all the departments, etc. For example, top level management plans for the entire organization, middle level management plans for the department, the lower level management plans for the day-to-day operations of the business. So planning is there present everywhere. Planning is required everywhere, at every level, in every department, and in every activity. Planning is a must. So that is why it is called as pervasive, wherein it exists everywhere and it is spread throughout. That is the meaning of pervasive here. And of course, the nature of planning, when planning exists everywhere, but the nature of planning will differ from one level to another level, from one organization to another organization, or from one department to another department, according to the nature of work and task and responsibility and authority. So here they have given the example of top level management. Top level management plans for the entire organizational goals. The middle level management, as we have already studied, we have different departments: finance department, sales department, purchase department. They will be planning only for that particular department. The lower level management plans for the day-to-day operations, that is supervisory level, for the supervisors and the staff and the workers and the foremen. So this is what is planning is pervasive. It is required everywhere and it is found at every level and department. The next one is planning is continuous. Planning is a continuous process. It means that plan is framed and it is implemented and is followed by another plan and so on. In other words, once an objective is achieved according to a plan, a new plan has to be set according to the need and requirement. Therefore, planning is never-ending process. Planning is of course a never-ending process. It is continuous. Once an objective is framed and implemented and achieved, management cannot relax. Management cannot take rest. But again, what they got to do is again start up with framing and setting another course of action, another plan in order to achieve the objective of goal according to the requirement of the organization. So that is why they say planning is a continuous process. It's a never-ending process. There is no relaxation for the management. Once a goal is achieved according to a plan, another goal is set and again plans are framed accordingly. The next feature is planning is futuristic. So planning involves looking ahead and prepares the organization for the future. Planning is therefore regarded as a forward-looking function. Through forecasting, future can be predicted, which helps the organization to frame plans accordingly. So planning is always anticipating the future. We are imagining or foreseeing the future. We are predicting the future. So it is always that is why it is called as a forward looking function of management. It doesn't look back, it looks in front, forward, and focuses on the achievement of future objectives. So that is why planning is done through forecasting. It is done through facts and it is predicted and it is anticipated. And this is how management foresees or anticipates the future and plans or frames the plans accordingly. Next feature is planning involves decision making. So planning involves making a choice among the various alternatives by thorough examination and evaluation of various alternatives and making the best choice among them. Thus, planning helps in taking the appropriate decision. So planning involves certain steps, and those steps we'll study in detail in the same chapter later on. So planning involves certain steps wherein a management has to analyze, has to study, has to find out the facts, has to find out the data of each and every option, that is alternative course of action. Analyze and study each and every alternative course of action and then check which will be an appropriate course of action and select that course of action and then implement it and then reach the goal. So this is what is planning involves decision making means. It helps the management to select an appropriate course of action among the various options available. So for that, management has to evaluate, analyze, and check which is going to be the best for the organization. So this is what is planning involves decision making. It helps the management to take the right decision at the right time. The next feature of planning is a mental exercise. Planning is an intellectual function. It requires logical and systematic thinking. In other words, thinking for planning must be orderly and it should be based on facts, forecast, and analysis. Therefore, planning is a mental exercise. Of course, planning is something which you do through your brains. Planning is a thinking process. It gives too much of stress and strain to your brains. It makes your brains work, and that is why it's called as a mental exercise. So planning is not a guesswork. Planning is done logically and in a very well organized and systematic way by studying the facts in a very orderly manner, by analyzing the facts, by forecasting, by predicting, and that is why it's called as a mental exercise. It is an intellectual function. Only intelligent and brilliant and outstanding people can plan well and be successful. It is an intellectual function, and this is why it is called as a mental exercise. It gives work to the brains. This is all for today's class, dear students. I hope you have understood. In our next class, we shall study the next aspects of planning. Thank you.